When the Body Says No is a groundbreaking book that assesses the hidden connection between physical well being and emotional turmoil in humans. Written by Gaber Mate, a renowned Canadian physicist and author of numerous books exploring the links between mental and physical health and trauma, it explores the link between the mind and the body and the role of stress with respect to the onset of many illnesses, such as diabetes, cancer, and heart disease. In this video, we did a broad summary and review of When the Body Says No by Gaber Mate. For years, medicine has predominantly adhered to the theory of mind body dualism, which asserts that the mind operates independently of the body. This theory leads to the separate study of the mind and the body and the belief that bodily functions are separated from their environments. This is evident in the fact that medical doctors are clearly distinguished from psychiatrists and therapists, and they work independently of one another with little to no communication. However, according to Gaber Mate, this is a flawed practice because there's no separation between the mind and the body. Rather, there's a deep link between them. And that's exactly the concept of Gaber Mate explored in the book When the Body Says No. Mate argues that modern medicine fails to recognize the devastating effects of chronic stress in our health, in part because of misunderstandings about what stress is and what causes it. Rather than occasional external pressures, Mate says humans in modern society tend to experience chronic stress. He argues that the majority of the stress we experience is subconscious, making it difficult to identify as stress. In fact, it's often those who believe themselves to be free from emotional troubles who are at the highest risk, because suppressing negative emotions prolongs the issue. Identifying your hidden stress is essential to resolving it and avoiding the inevitable health problems that come with it. Chronic stress is a psychological problem. Mate argues that thinking of the mind and the body as two separate entities disguises the connection between chronic stress and disease. According to Mate, researchers tend to overlook those connections because of the way they're defining and identifying stress, as well as their lack of attention to human psychology. Mate highlights that doctors tend to primarily search for biological causes of disease. When they cannot identify one, as is often the case with most cancers and other serious illnesses, they conclude the disease is of unknown etiology. Rarely do they consider the possibility of a causal origin rooted in the psychology of the human being as the host of the disease. Mate also says there's too much emphasis on genetic research. Genes are turned on and off by the environment, he says. Thus, the environment plays a more significant role in shaping us than genetics. Despite this, substantial resources are invested in genetic research, while the environmental and societal causes of disease are overlooked. He points out that even when external or genetic risk factors are identified, they are not sufficient explanations. If they were, all smokers would develop lung cancer and non smokers would never. Mate argues that doctors often forget to ask broader questions, such as why this patient has this disease at this particular time. Contrary to the strictly biological approach to disease, Mate advocates for an approach that entails looking at disease from social, biological, and psychological perspectives. He also advocates for the study of the interconnections between our nervous system, immune system, hormones, and psychological processes. The interaction between these systems serves to recognize threats, internal and external, and to respond to them in psychological and behavioral ways. However, this isn't the brainchild of Mate. He is building on the work of Dr. John Sarno, who coined the term tension mitosis syndrome, TMS. TMS refers to any condition where an individual's psychological state influences their physical well being. For instance, fibromyalgia, which lacks a single psychological cause, still manifests in real symptoms of fatigue and pain. Mate emphasizes that understanding a patient's personal history is crucial for aiding their recovery from illness. This fosters trust, reduces power imbalances, and ultimately enhances the effectiveness of treatment. However, this approach faces a significant obstacle. It is time-consuming and challenging. Many individuals may believe they've had positive childhoods, making it difficult to uncover underlying trauma and stressors. Skilled doctors are required to navigate this process effectively. Nonetheless, this approach is considered healthier. Columbia University has established a program in narrative medicine to train doctors on facilitating patients' sharing of life stories. According to Mate, stress is triggered by uncertainty, conflict, a lack of information, and a lack of control. When the brain perceives these conditions, it interprets them as threats. Consequently, your hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal glands, the HPA axis, release hormones like cortisol to manage inflammation and cope with stress. While cortisol release can be beneficial in situations requiring fight or flight responses, it can induce a freeze response, shutting down bodily systems, including pain perception. Reduced pain often allows you to suppress issues related to uncertainty, conflict, lack of information, and loss of control, especially in short outbursts to manage crises. However, when stress is prolonged over extended periods, days, weeks, months, or years, it breaks down your body and increases vulnerability to illness. According to Mate, there's a difference between acute stress and chronic stress. Acute stress is typically linked to specific events such as car accidents, divorces, or the loss of a loved one. In contrast, a chronic stress involves lower levels of stress that persist over time, occurring continuously and often unconsciously. This stress is caused by a variety of factors. It is a fact that a significant part of human survival and evolution stems from the ability to master and control our environments. However, this innate need for control can also be a significant source of stress. In the modern world, there are countless stressors beyond our control, such as wars in distant countries or fluctuations in the housing market. While technology provides us with a greater awareness of these issues, we often find ourselves powerless to change them. Much of chronic stress can also stem from childhood experiences perceived as threats that were never resolved. Matt explains that approximately 90% of brain development occurs in the first few years of a child's life. During de-stressing moments in childhood, being loved and comforted by parents helps us learn how to soothe ourselves and develop empathy for others. Sometimes these threatening experiences manifest as trauma, where something harmful occurs to us as children, or as neglect, where something vital is withheld. In addition to physical affection, children require attunement, where carers are tuned in to their needs both physically and emotionally. Even in loving families, attunement can be lacking, impacting how we learn to love, comfort ourselves, and regulate our emotions. Trauma, or a lack of emotional and physical nurturing during childhood, can blur the distinction between threats and non threats, significantly influencing the personality we develop and how we cope with stress. However, our childhood personality isn't the sole contributor to chronic stress, as Matt explains. Our positionality within multi generational families, culture, and society also plays a crucial role. In the past, humans lived in large extended families, which provided significant social connection and identity formation. In contrast, modern capitalist societies often necessitate placing children in daycare or sending them to school so that parents can work, diminishing the role of extended families. Matt extensively references research throughout his book, demonstrating the correlation between diseases and chronic stress. For instance, individuals with gut diseases like inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome, and gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD, have a higher incidence of past abuse. Another example is the bowel disease alexithymia, where victims often struggle to express their feelings verbally, a difficulty often linked to childhood trauma and neglect. Moreover, autoimmune diseases such as arthritis and lupus are associated with compensating hyperindependence, possibly stemming from early parental or familial loss, which forces them to a premature caregiving role. Some forms of cancer also exhibit psychological risk factors connected to repressed emotions, particularly anger. However, Matt argues that regardless of one's current circumstances, individuals can take control of their chronic stress to lead happier and healthier lives. To do this, he recommends following these practices. The first is to avoid toxic positivity at all costs. Instead of solely focusing on happy thoughts, healthy thinking involves acknowledging all feelings, positive and negative. While it's not necessary to dwell on negative thoughts, suppressing them prevents healing. Negative emotions deserve to be felt, as repressing them can manifest in various ways, including illness. The second is to be kind and honest about your current reality. Avoid casting blame and recognize that, while there are many things beyond your control, you can control your response. Ask yourself if you are living according to your true self or trying to meet someone else's expectations. The third is to establish boundaries to protect your well being. This involves saying no when necessary and asserting your needs and limits. Recognize that setting boundaries is not selfish. It's essential for maintaining your mental and emotional health. To start your boundary journey, begin with boundaries with yourself, such as limiting social media use or being mindful of the food you eat. As you become more comfortable saying no to yourself, you'll find it easier to set boundaries with others. Making connections with others is another crucial factor for reducing stress and fighting off the risk of disease. Despite technological advances that may give a false sense of connection, genuine connection requires face-to-face interaction. Loneliness and isolation increase the risk of illness, highlighting the importance of building a community. And that's a wrap on the summary and review of Gabor Mate's When the Body Says No. What's your take on it? Let us know in the comments section. Thanks for watching this video. Remember to subscribe to this channel for more helpful content.